Okay, it's always a beautiful Saturday to come your way with your ultimate current affairs program on television, Politics Today on independent television and radio, Benin City. Today on the show, we'll begin our conversation by looking at the PDP's quest to seize power in 2023 amidst the crisis rocking the party, particularly from what is coming from Rivers State. Nyesom Wike, governor of Rivers State, doesn't seem to be relenting in his effort to make a bold statement of his stand in relationship with the national leadership of the party, and then connected to the PDP presidential primaries fallout. We'll also be looking at the ruling party in the country, talking about the APC in their quest to retain power in 2023. And then the undercurrent of the obedience movement. That's a major force to reckon with, whether you like it or not, in the build up to the 2023 elections. This and lots more we will be looking at on the show. Not forgetting the ASU strike, and then of course the strike by the electricity workers that shut the country down a few days ago. But less than 24 hours it was called. But we'll also talk about that. I'd like to thank my only guest for the show today. And there's a reason for that, and I think it's divine, because he's looking very divine this morning. Reverend Olu Martins, thank you for joining us, Executive Director, Canvassers for Democracy and Rule of Law. Many thanks for coming on Politics Today.
Thank you. Good morning, viewers and listeners. It's always a privilege to express oneself, especially on the #1 radio and television station in Edo State. I'm scared to add South.
You shouldn't be scared. That's what we are. That's what we are. Thanks for the compliment. Thanks for the compliments. Anyways, let's go right into the program. But just before then, for the benefit of our viewers and listeners, our studio line, as usual, will be open, so you can also call and be part of the discussion. You can share your thoughts with us on our Twitter handle at ITV Radio NG. You can follow me on my personal Twitter handle at Duke Okosun. If you post a comment there right away, we'll share it on the program. Okay, let's get started. Now, the PDP presidential primaries is come and gone, and unfortunately, the fallout, the dust generated from that primaries is yet to settle, particularly with a certain Nyesom Wike, the governor of Rivers State. Earlier this week, we were told that there was a meeting that was going to take place where all the differences will be put on the table and then it will be resolved. But we heard that the Wike group is asking for Iyorchia Ayu to step down as national chairman. The Atiku faction is saying, no, he can't step down because this is an election year, and that may undermine our chances. What do you make of this crisis rocking the party?
Thank you very much, sir. Professor V.U. The name just escaped me now. Former Dean of Students, Agayare,
okay.
V.U. Agayare, in our university days, in a meeting with student leaders, some of us had been suspended, and then we went to engage him, and he said a man sat on a horse. He said his head fell on the right, his cap fell on the left, and he can only pick one. Which one do we think that he can pick? And then we said, of course, if he picks the cap, there will be no head to put it on. But if he picks his head, and he will have his head on, even if he doesn't want to have his cap. Having said so, that's where PDP has found itself. PDP, after the elections, the primaries have fallen, their head is on the left, their cap is on the right. Their head is the election that they want to win. Their cap is Iyorchia Ayu, if you like, versus Wike. And I've said it before, when the presidential candidate, His Excellency Atiku Abubakar, said he picked somebody that he could work with. And I said, that is assuming that you will win the election. Remember between Ronald Reagan and George H. Bush, political enemies who didn't see eye to eye. But Ronald Reagan picked George H. Bush because he wanted to win the election. After we win the election,
you can resolve.
Then we can be talking about who I can work with and who I cannot work with. I'm a fan of Animal Kingdom, and I watched once a lion who had held a buffalo by the jugular, choking it. Another lion came and was attacking the other lion for the buffalo that was yet to die. Eventually, the two lions began to fight themselves. The buffalo resuscitated and ran away. So we're talking about PDP is sharing an elephant that it has not killed. And the big factor, you can't wave away with whimsically, because Wike is a force within the PDP. For 8 years now, the People's Democratic Party has not had a president to whip them into line, not to fund them. But we know that His Excellency Barrister Nyesom Wike has consistently funded the party, especially in states where there are no state governors to fund the party. He's held the party together for 8 years. Unfortunately, we didn't see that same impact with the present candidate of the party. This is without saying that there was a consensus, a meeting in Asaba. Unfortunately, the communique of that meeting was read by Okowa, where they agreed unanimously that power must come to the South. All of the guys who were in the meeting, according to Nyesom Wike, worked against him. So you can see that the guy is hot, the guy is embittered, and for him, that Iyorchia Ayu will go. It's not new. Anytime there's a crisis, there must be a fall guy. Do not forget that it happened to Bamanga Tuko. It happened to Colonel Amadou Ali of the PDP. Even in recent time, it still happened to Adams Aliu or Shomol. He became the fall guy for the party to stabilize. So the question you must ask yourself is, who is more influential within the party? Is it an Iyorchia Ayu or a Nyesom Wike? And the party must choose. Nyesom Wike is not alone. He has Seyi Makinde there. He has Wine with him. He has his friend in Benue State. He has about 5 governors with him who are asking. So you must ask yourself, are you willing to lose 5 governors for a national chairman, or are you willing to give the national chairman as a fall guy? There must be a sacrificial lamb, because proverbially
this governors you mentioned,
somebody must lay his life, quote unquote, on the
these governors you mentioned just have 1 vote. I mean, working against the party as it presents itself now, isn't that tantamount to undermining the supremacy of the party supremacy? Isn't that what they say?
Well, that is supposing in Nigeria there is party supremacy. Even within the party there are interests. Now, if we are talking about party supremacy, we are told that the candidate of the party selected 17 people. We are talking about party supremacy to determine who will be his running mate. And we are told, if television reports anything to go by, that 14 of them decided that it should be Nyesom Wike. 3 of them decided that it should be Okowa. We're talking about party supremacy. If party was supreme, we thought that, ordinarily, the article should not tinker with that
arrangement.
Since you are the one who put them together, you could have just said, as party candidate, bulk of the resources is going to come from me, I prefer Ifeanyi Okowa. We didn't need to go through that hog of putting a team together, and the team, they even voted. They didn't advise you. They voted and said, this is the man that we prefer. You circumvented that process. And apart from circumventing that process, before announcing, I thought, as a veteran politician, you were going to have some level of tete-a-tete, a private discussion with Wike. For Wike himself to now hear that the announcement against the vote, the announcement for the vice president, he didn't even know about it. He was hearing like every other person from television, from the media space. I'm sure the guy must have been bewildered. It looked like they were undermining him. It looked like they were telling him that, there's nothing that you can do. And if anybody thinks that any governor has one vote, I mean, that person, I mean, is inexperienced. We are told that all of the flags in all local governments, at the state, even the state chapter of the People's Democratic Party in Rivers State and the government have all the flags of PDP have been taken, away. What it means that the man is in charge of PDP as far as Rivers State is concerned, and that there's nobody who can lie about that. So they must ask themselves, are we willing to sacrifice? Because my mother used to say, fight never starts, nose don't they bleed. That's what's happening to PDP right now. The fight has not started. I think he's called, he started the unifier. He cannot unify his own party. He's in Nigeria, he wants to unify. So they have a long haul because other parties don't have that issue, and they began to run, and they are still on the track. On your mark, say they are not even moved. They must settle their own internal squabbles. By the time they settle their internal squabbles, if they do, maybe the ruling party would have gone far ahead of them, and maybe the obedient group would have far gone ahead of them, because right now they have weights on their leg, and the weights are heavy weights. Winston Wike and his lot are not people that you want to joke.
So do you think that the PDP presidential candidate, there's something he could have done differently in terms of engaging this issue to avoid the escalation that we are seeing, which seems to be tearing the party apart?
I think that he should have been more tactical in his approach, because all of this Wike, nobody has spoken to me, nobody has reached out to me. I think that the candidate of the party is looking at himself more along the line of the fact that, who is Wike? Do you know when I started politics? How old is he? We're talking about an election that is next year. So all of those issues about experience, personal pride, ego, should have been put aside, except the PDP is not willing to win this election. I thought that privately, the man should have just gone to have a private discussion. It's not a thing of pride. Any wise man, my father used to tell me that any wise man would pursue peace in his house. There are some times that you go meet your wife. It's not pride. You have to say, look, even when you think that she's wrong, but the angle that she's taking, that if you also take that angle, this thing will escalate needlessly. So you just look, my dear, you explain yourself, because you are pursuing peace at all costs. So I thought that Atiku should have been more strategic in approaching this matter. For me, it's looking like now that everybody is at daggers drawn, and the thing is getting deeper. My mother used to tell me that you get where cloth will tear it, you won't be able to patch it anymore. I hope that PDP recovers from this, because if you know anything about the typical Ikwere man, they can fight other people's fight. It's not their fight, they can fight other people's fight. How much less when it's their own fight? Look at Rotimi Amechi. There is no difference between the character of Rotimi Amechi and the character of Wike. As we speak today, the APC is here to settle its crisis in Rivers State between Magnus Abe and Rotimi Amechi. So these are people who enjoy battle, so to speak, and then you bring the battle to them. I'm sure that Wike is in his elements right now, because this is who he is. So whether PDP is ready to go the long haul, the man has reached his end. He has been 2 times governor. There's nothing that you can, the best you can do, what he was looking for was to go forward, but you can't impeach him from office. So he's going to leave the office fulfilled. Then if he succeeds in now installing somebody, then he becomes the Al Capone, the Tutikapi of Rivers, politics. And Rivers votes, apart from Lagos State, the highest number of votes is Rivers State, followed by Delta State. So I think that people should play their chess properly and ensure that they come into the main arena without any hindrances, without any weight that is currently besetting them.
The likes of Sule Lamido have recommended sanctions against Nyesom Wike to bring sanity to the party and douse the problem. Is that pride taken too far?
Sanctions, what kind of sanctions are you going to talk about? That will change the current status of things. The worst you do is that you will suspend Wike from the party, or you'll expel Wike from the party. You expel Wike from the party, he's got a lot of sentiments on his side. People are on his side. So if you expel Wike from the party, it means that you're ready to take Seyi Makinde along, you're ready to take Ugwanyi along, you're ready to take his friend in the Benue State axis along. And people should learn from history. Atiku himself led an NPDP with Bukola Saraki in Eagle Square. 5 governors. We're almost having 5 governors. And they walked out of, the PDP, joined the APC, and like they say, the life of the APC never remained the same, again. They don't even have power. And you already have almost 5 governors who are telling themselves that, you know what, if it's either it goes this way, or we're ready to scatter everything. And then, Sule Lamido, who should be more political, who should be more diplomatic. We must forget that Sule Lamido has held office before as Minister of External Affairs. And one of the things about externalities is about diplomacy. This is not about sanctions. This is not about legislation. This is not about discipline. This is more about being politically maverick and being tactical in approaching this. The issue can be solved. Just that the first thing is that people must undress themselves with their toga of pride. Because right now, it's all about pride and ego. I want to show Wike that we can do without him. And Wike is trying to say, okay, if you can do without me, you do without me at a cost. It's going to cost you something. And it may just cost them the presidential, elections if they're not careful the way they are going about it. So I think that Sule Lamido is just, grandstanding. And then, I'm not sure a Southern governor will make that statement. So if he's a Northern, element, it is not, you don't have to throw the stone too far to see why he can be making that kind of statement. I hope that Sule Lamido inadvertently isn't working for the, ruling party by that kind of statement that he has made.
If you just joined us, you're on to Politics Today on independent television and radio. Of course, looking at some of the challenges bedeviling the PDP in the build up to the 2023 general elections and how the party can resolve that and make an interesting impact in the election proper. Only time will tell if that will ever happen against the background of the crisis rocking the party at the moment. We'll take a short break. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll be looking at the strategies and the deployment of tactics on the part of the ruling party in the build up to the 2023 election. Then we'll cascade onto the obedient movement before we look at the issue of strike by ASUU that has continued to take its toll on the educational sector. Well, these are lots more you should expect after this break on the program. Stay with us. Thanks again for staying with us on the program Politics Today on independent television and radio. My guest, Reverend Olu Mata, Executive Director, Canvassers for Democracy and Rule of Law. Many thanks again for rejoining us on the program. Quickly, one major point of divergence as it relates to the ruling party's quest to retain power is the ticket, the Muslim ticket. I think it was just a few days ago, some youths asking for Shatima to be replaced by a Christian vice presidential candidate. Do you think that events have overtaken this already as we move towards 2023 elections?
I even think that the issues have not even begun to boil, so to speak, because the campaigns proper have not started. Many of the things that are happening are what we call mosquito campaigns. But I can understand where Bola Ahmed Tinubu is coming from. And I sympathize with him, honestly speaking, because I think that not just his hands are tied, I think that his feet and mouth are also tied. Because here you have a seemingly monolithic North that has, so to speak, a large population of Muslims who have continued, unfortunately, to tower politically over, the Christians. Because the Christian population in the North is not something that you can wave over. Adamawa State is almost 50-50. You go to Nasarawa State, I mean, I even told that there are more Christians in Nasarawa State than you have. You go to Jos. I mean, Jos is practically a Christian state. You go to Benue. You go to Kogi State. So there are a number of states in the North where you have huge Christian population. Unfortunately, politically speaking, we have not seen any major Christian person who has risen politically. The best part we have seen is Boss Mustafa, who continues to be more of a diplomatic person instead of a political figure. So in the North, apart from the governors of this Christian state that I've talked about, we haven't seen a character in the ilk of Musa Yar'Adua. We haven't seen a character in the ilk of El Rufai. We haven't seen major appointments where Christians were put into major positions. All the time, the person who has been minister of the FCT has always been, a Muslim. So it looks as if there's a deliberate attempt to create the impression that the Muslims are higher in number, whereas it looks like the Muslims have continued to dominate the Christians in the North. That's why, in this particular instance, the Northern guys are saying, come on, we need to speak up, in this particular instance. So when we get to the main election, I think that more of these issues will be thrown up. But ordinarily speaking, this shouldn't be an issue in a country like our own. But it is an issue because statistics continually seem to point to the fact that it looks as if the Christians are being emasculated. It looks as if there's religious misanthropism in the North. Yes, we know that the bandits have also raided mosques, but the people who have suffered the preponderance of mishaps have been more in the Christian quarters, whether it's from Deeper Life, Redeem. Recently, it looks like there's an onslaught against Catholic priests. So there seems to be some level of religious intolerance in the core north of Nigeria. Whereas they look at the Muslims on the south as really not being fundamental, Muslims. I'm sure they must consider Bola Ahmed Tinubu as a nominal Christian, seeing his wife, being a pastor. So they think that, so that we can continue to perpetuate that hegemony, that Muslim dominance in the North, we must have a Muslim vice presidential candidate running side by side, another Muslim, presidential candidate. It shouldn't have mattered, but because of the way Nigeria is now, everybody is worried as to what it represents for the country. It's not just about whether the vice president can do anything. It's about symbolism. It's symbolic to be able to have a president who is Christian or Muslim, and then a vice president who is a Christian or Muslim. There must be that balancing for the purpose of what? A sense of belonging, for the purpose of symbolism. Let's just have those symbols, because symbols are important. I always tell people that you can have a man and a woman who don't talk in their house. They probably have, husband and wife, they have a problem. But every time they step out into a party, it is symbolic. That the man came with his wife. It's not symbolic. They may not have spoken for 6 months, but it doesn't matter. The fact that the woman is still in the man under a roof, or in this particular case, the man is under the woman's roof, but we see a situation where husband and wife are together. That's why even when people lose their wives or lose their husbands, usually they want to get another partner. So that balance to say, okay, there's a man in the house, there's a woman, it's the same balance. It's not whether the vice president can do anything if he's a Christian, vice president. It's so that we can have a sense of belonging. Especially the way Nigeria is right now, the level of plurality is just to be sensitive to our multiple beliefs, because we are divided between Christians or Muslims. So if you have a Christian president and a Muslim president, or a Christian candidate and a Muslim candidate, vice versa, it just tells everybody that, feel at home, Nigeria belongs to everybody.
The feeling that this is more or less, this is of a lesser challenge for the ruling party compared to the state of affairs in the country, state of the economy, insecurity, and what have you. What do you make of this?
State of affairs created by who? By the same ruling party. I'm shocked, for instance, that I watched on television the Speaker of the, House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, in the midst of students singing and dancing buga, and all the students are happy, and they have been at home for well over 153 days now. You would have thought that the students are going to be impatient with Femi Gbajabiamila, but they seem to be excited that they have, the Speaker of the House of Rep, in their midst. So I'm shocked that the Nigeria that we have today, in spite of what we're doing bad in all of the known indices. exchange rates seem to be skyrocketing, on a daily basis. Food prices skyrocketing. And I'm upset when people say it's like that everywhere. And we forget to point to nations like Gambia, nations like, Gambia, Zambia, and Rwanda, who are doing well in spite of the prevarications and vicissitudes. Where we found ourselves when APC took over from PDP, when we thought that PDP was doing badly, we have now discovered that there's a new definition for doing, badly. And even the APC themselves are struggling with either associating themselves with the abysmal performance of their party or dissociating, themselves. You heard the former party chairman, Adato Shomole, says that Bola Tinubu cannot be blamed for the performance of Buhari, dissociating himself. But we have watched clips of where Bola Ahmed Tinubu promised us that if we must get to some level of El Dorado, when nations have challenges, they pick their best player. And as we speak now, Muhammadu Buhari is our best player as at 2015. So if you thought that Muhammadu Buhari was our best player 2015, and we have found ourselves where we are today, it tells me that there's something wrong with your sense of judgment in terms of who you think a performer should be and who a performer should not be. So where we have found ourselves is created essentially, by the APC. So they should not be the one telling us that the challenges on ground far outweigh the challenges on ground created by your own party in spite of all of the things that you promised us. What they are trying to tell us is the fact that let's forget about the smaller issues. Let's deal with the bigger issues. What is a small issue to an individual is different from what is a big issue to somebody else. I hear somebody say, "Oh, pastors should be building, industries." I said, "But that's not his calling. But a pastor is not an entrepreneur. He's not a business. He's not an industrialist. He is a pastor who says that he has received his calling from God." Let the industrialists, let the business people who says that is their own calling, build industry and let government, support them. It is the same thing too. For a pastor, for instance, he's going to be weary. If your church is in the north and it has been burnt down and your pastors have been killed, for you that's a weightier matter. You can't tell me that that's a less, weightier matter and that the issues of hunger are more weightier than that. Survival is weightier for me. And if I think that my religious inclination is threatened, I'll consider that, weightier, and I'm going to put that in the front burner. After all, I think it was from you that I heard it on this program, that it is where it's hurting the person that the person puts close to the fire. I thought that it was drugs we used to take in those days, but apparently you're talking about how it used to be, So clearly, is that the APC have created a problem, and they are the ones that should suffer for the problems that
they're saying that.
And the only way to cover for it is for people to, quote and unquote, we can't reinforce failure.
Okay, against that background, the saying now is that the performance, depends on how you see it, whether positive or negative, of the PDP, and then that of the APC has largely given birth to the obedient movement. But the question has always been, how sustainable is this in the build-up to the election, and even in the electioneering process proper? I'd like to get your perspectives on this.
It was Booker T. Washington that said, nature scatters in every generation. Men and women who must take charge of the destinies of others that turn it around for good. Shakespeare said, there are times and tides in the affairs of men which, when taken, leads to success. Ecclesiastes says, time and chance happen to them all. So it just so happened that it just looks like it is the time for Peter Obi. Like you said, whether that will culminate to a victory is another thing entirely. But for the first time in this country, if you want to contest election in this country, people will tell you that you must have two things. You must be popular, you must have money. But Peter Obi will come and say, I don't give shishi. And people are saying, we don't care. Initially, they couldn't go to anywhere and say, I don't have money, and I want to contest the election. People say, go and bring money first. But people are saying, don't even give us money. We're going to spend our own personal money and run campaigns for you, both online, because initially people say, oh, they are just online. They are no longer, it's no longer an online thing now. We are now seeing people on ground in Calabar, in Nasarawa, in Edo, in different places. And then we are now seeing the ovation the man is receiving at different religious, gatherings, that he has gone to. So people are now beginning to wonder. People told us, people said, oh, you know what, as soon as BB Nigeria starts, people are going to forget about it. If there's anybody who has been forgotten, it's the BB Nigeria, because nobody is speaking about them. However, is that you have raised a fundamental issue. Is it sustainable? Whether it is sustainable is a different ball game entirely, because this looks more like a Peter Obi thing. I'm not seeing, for instance, the Labour Party leveraging, on it. I'm not seeing networking. I'm not seeing attempts by the Labour Party, because not only of the movements that we have seen, essentially by Peter. So it looks like the Peter Obi movement is on one side, Labour Party is on the other side, because it is individuals who are taking initiatives, not the party in itself. So whether the party is ready, because the party has a role to play when it has to do with agents, when it has to do with voter defense, voter protection, sensitization. When we get there on that day, it is the Labour Party who are going to be voting for. There isn't going to be a place for the obedient movement. And then when the larger campaign starts,
yes,
I hope, because when Labour Party, when Peter Obi said, I know they give shishi, it is assumed that you will not give shishi to influence votes.
Yeah.
It is not because you will not give shishi to take care of logistics.
Yeah.
To come to a state and have 10,000 people in a place require logistics. Even when the people are willing to trek to where the issues are, there will be sound, there will be media, there will be security, there will be refreshment. So they must be willing to spend that shishi in the right, direction. And honestly speaking, Labour Party should do more of networking, because right now it looks like they are enjoying the popularity, because I'm not sure that Labour Party has ever experienced this such before. People are buying, almost 4 people bought presidential funds from Labour Party. That equals to 120 million naira at 30 million per form. In Edo State, they have a candidate for a senatorial candidate in Edo Central and in Edo, at 10 million naira. They have House of Rep candidate, they have House of Assembly candidate. That is in Edo State. So I think that Labour Party's, ranks have swollen tremendously. Whether they're able to manage it would depend on how strategic they are. And for me, honestly speaking, to be honest with you, they don't look as strategic, right now.
Okay, now
they're not harnessing the political entropy that the party is currently enjoying.
Yeah, I've heard people say that the population of Nigerians who are partisan, belong to political parties, is very, very few. That the larger population of Nigerians don't belong to any political party. And if this is part of the obedient movement, isn't that a reflection of the third force which is needed to change the narratives as far as Nigeria is concerned?
I totally agree with you. Unfortunately, it does look like the third force is only interested in, whether fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know how to put it, they are just interested in Peter Obi, because it has not reflected in other elections. When we're talking about a third force, we think that it will reflect in Osun, will reflect in Ekiti. It looks like the preponderance of opinion is the fact that people just want to change the president, because they feel that, now for head of fish, if we change the head, we are going to probably be able to change, every other thing. So I've not seen, apart from in Peter Obi's election, I've not seen the readiness of the third force to wrest power from the ruling party in other elections. And it is understandable. It tells us that this election is about the personality of Mr. Peter Obi. It's not whether he is Igbo. Because if they have moved that same ticket and they are giving it to another Igbo man, he will not be enjoying what is currently enjoying. So it's not an ethnic thing. It's just that the man has given us a new, if you like, a new model for who a political icon should be. Because we used to think that a political icon must have a bullion van in his company. But the man has demystified leadership. He has let us know that, look, I am part of you. I'm not different from you. And I was excited when I listened to their town hall meeting in Abuja, where he said, and I'm quoting him, that Peter Obi and Dati are not the ones who are contesting for president and vice president. You are the guys who are contesting. His statements that he's making are statements that the typical politicians, have not made. You hear somebody say, they will labor in vain. And the man says, look, I don't engage personality, I engage issues. Look at the beauty of what he did when he went to meet with Femi Adekunle Kuti. In spite of Femi's variance with him, the man still went to do, let me see him personally. You don't have to vote, for me, but at least understand what I vote, what I stand for. And it's beautiful, because even if I cannot have you as a friend, I would not like to have you as an enemy. If you don't vote for me, don't vote against me. Just campaign for your person and forget about, what. Okay. I see him going to meet the likes of, Deji, Adeyanju, and some of these other non-state actors who are heavily aligned to a political party. If he's able to do all of that and he's able to do more of his networking, I'm sure that the third force, will gather.
The ASUU strike, like you mentioned, is running into taking a big toll in the education sector. And just recently we saw electricity workers almost towing that line. But I'm grateful to God that it was doused immediately, less than 24 hours, that strike was called off. And within that period, no light. I mean, people were really strong as to what to do to be able to have access to power, do business and stuff like that. I'd like to get your final thoughts on this before we open our studio lines. Yeah.
I'm worried in this country because everybody seems to have power in this country. I don't know if it is true, but I heard that was this cemetery or mortuary attendants said that they were also going to go on national strike. Whether it is true or not, I don't know. But everybody just seems to think that, because it looks like there's no leadership. The Bible says time came when Israel had no king, and everybody just did that which was right, in their eyes. You would wonder how in a nation, how do you kill a nation? There are two things you can kill in a nation. You kill the family, you kill family values, and then you kill the education. Once you kill the education, because even if you kill the education, and if you kill the education, eventually you kill family values. All right? I saw young guys on television who have become innovative, undergraduates, who are selling akara somewhere in Bayelsa State. Yeah. And the guys packaging everything, for commercial, value. So by the time students resume, many of them would have brain drain. Many they cannot even remember where they started from. So gradually, we're killing the future of this country because we're killing our education. Unfortunately, it's the fact that many of our political elite don't have their children here. So I supported Sergio Ogun. And God will bless him, where the man was bold enough to say no political office holder should have their children schooling up. And I think that is where it should start from. I'm happy that as at yesterday, NASU and SANU have called off their 50 days strike. Hopefully, is that their matter has been settled. Hopefully, federal government will move to ASUU and settle.
ASUU's own may not be settled because federal government is saying they are not going to pay the backlog of salaries. And ASUU is saying, well, if you're not paying our salaries, we won't do the extra to meet up with what has been lost or to make up for what has been lost. I don't know what you make of this.
Federal government says a lot of things. Yeah, they say a lot of things. All right, and that's why I'm very excited about the media. Usually, the media brings this thing to fore. I mean, somebody denied when somebody came up to say, "Look, they bought cars for Niger Republic." Who denied it? And then the media came and brought it up. So very soon, because federal government say we can't do this, but when there's pressure mounted by everybody, federal government will work. In this particular instance, it is unreasonable to hear that the amount that we're spending to service political office, we have a bike, not a legislature. We have, if you like, a bicameral ministerial portfolio. You have a minister, you have a minister of state. In all of
you have a president, vice president.
You have a president, a vice president.
Senate, Senate, House of Deputy Speaker.
So you can imagine the amount of money that is used to service the political class, many of whom passed through some of these lecturers that we're talking about. In Japan, nobody receives salaries before the Prime Minister of Japan. In Japan, you are in a public meeting. If a teacher comes in, you stand up. That's why Japan is where it is today. We can't compete favorably, competitively with other nations when our education is in shambles. So everything should be done to get the lecturers. I usually don't have anything to say to the lecturers. I understand that they have their own, personal, issues to deal with internally. But ASUU has its own machinery to self-regulate itself and self-control itself. Talking about the issues of, power. I saw, Comrade Ajero, and the guy, I saw people going to switch off, the national, and I'm shocked. How can an individual have so much power as to direct that even the transmission stations solely owned by the federal government. People can go on
and
to
switch it off.
But this is what happened. In our bid to quickly privatize, a lot of eyes, a lot of tears, of course. So we just, the people, maybe just, because to fulfill campaign promise, the thing was just, many of those transmission stations and many, the Gencos, the Discos were sold off. To take over them is not very difficult because you must go through the process. That's the challenge that BEDC is having, all right?
No, I saw a video where, I couldn't independently verify that video, where the MD of BEDC, for example, was being guided by some security agents, whisked her away in a vehicle also. That didn't quite make sense to me, against the undercurrent of what's been happening, being in court and all of that.
Yeah, for me, I had my own worries too. Because I heard people say, oh, the woman has been arrested. And I said, no, it is the law. I mean, should I be happy that the law is mistreating my enemy in court? Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not going to be excited because it's democracy and the rule of law. And that's why if you go to our court, there's a woman whose eyes are blinded. It is about the law. So for me, it's not about Funke or whoever it is. It's about the fact that you must follow due process to ensure that whatever you want to do, you do it following the law. I can't be excited that my enemy, there is jungle justice because somebody is my enemy. He took my girlfriend and then people are beating him up and I'm excited about it. I'm probably going to rescue him and take him to the police station, let him face the due process. So since the matters are in court, I would expect that everybody would maintain status quo if we believe in our judicial process. So I think that what happened was that the guy who was supposed to come and, take over from Port Harcourt, came with his own force, and Funke says, no, there's a subsisting thing. And I don't know if she was arrested, but the video I saw looked like she was invited. I'm told that she was later released, in the evening. I think that people should just allow the process of the law take its place. You can't take over a place in a gangster, manner because you think that you have certain, orders from powers from above. When you have the law, the lawyers say will be just will be remedy. When there's a law, there must be a remedy to it. Since the matters are in court, the appeal is the injunction says maintain status quo. Let the guys who have been managing their affairs continue to manage their affairs, whilst the matters pending in court are adjudicated, upon. And I think everybody, DSS, the police, BEDC, the new quote unquote, the new management should respect the law and let them deal with the matter in court pending the court judgment so that we can continue to enjoy. I had light for 48 hours 3 days ago. I wanted to go to the police station to report myself.
Why?
Overconsumption. So that people do not say, when you are supposed to have light for 16 hours. You don't have for 24 hours and 48 hours. Did you report to the police? So I was scared. But
to be on the safe side.
Yeah, to be on the safe side, just to be sure that I was doing anything.
All right, let's open our studio line so we can get some contributions from our listeners and viewers on the program Politics Today. 070-8365. 1320. All right. A certain number we used to drag this program some few weeks ago before we had this line. Some people are still calling that line, and I recall some weeks back someone accused me of the question of impunity. All right, because somebody has said that word, and I wanted to good morning, please. Tell us in the way. Yeah, good morning.
This is Sonny Edosa.
Yes, Sonny Edosa. Your voice is unstickable. Please go ahead.
Honestly speaking, I really just add. I wish you were in that National Assembly. I just mentioned that we should do the close to the meeting. That Olumatis are not struggling with this issue.
Yeah.
So if you talk about it from A to Z, there is no one I can manage from it.
Thank you.
The only thing I can only just add, first of all, the fact that I have said before that we should not rule out every individual from a political party. It talks about party supremacy. We must allow party to run, regulatory like government president. Otherwise, we make less of the whole process. Wike is a very important person that you cannot rule out for today. Don't forget that for the past 7 years, Wike alone was like an opposition on his own to Mr. Buhari and NPC. Don't forget the role he played in legislative politics relating to 2020 election. Such man you cannot rule him out. And he has something on ground to talk about. Let us not rule him out because if Pastor Olumatis has 40 votes, and me I have 39. He that has 40 votes will be the winner. So every aspect of election is very important. Let us not rule him out.
Okay.
Then when you talk about the issue of the Tinubu I think that is an error. You know, Lumachis has constantly said that people do not care how much you know until they know how much you care about them.
Yeah.
Nigeria would have bothered whether it's a Christian or a Muslim. But what you are seeing today, if somebody like President Buhari and Pastor Simbajo have been noticed for over 7 years, we are not seeing changes. And you not become Muslim. That's what people will support you. So if we say that because of Nigeria is a secular state, how come we are not bringing the issue of religion? So they need to balance this whole crisis so that they don't become a bigger crisis. Lastly, don't forget that before 2015, Nigeria was tried that bank of trial was too expensive for 8,000. We needed $1 to naira. But at the end of the day, we never knew where we were going to. So obedience movement is important. But at the end of the day, what will change if we finally eventually get into office?
Okay, so I'll pause you there so we can take other calls. Hello, caller. Good morning. What's your name?
Hello.
Yes, good morning.
Sir, I just an appointment today, go.
Hello, this is Politics Today on ITV. Good morning.
Yeah, come out. Hello, sir.
Yes, tell us your name and where you calling from.
Yeah, this is Pastor, the pastor of the whole world.
Okay, Pastor of the world, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think you have spoken in length, and I want to appreciate your guest here, very important pastor.
Thank you.
Yeah, you know the drive, and you know the mind of everybody.
Thank you.
So I feel you know the direction, and that is how it will go. We are waiting for their campaign, what they are going to tell us again, whether they are going to tell us they are going to give us road, they are going to give us light, they are going to fix security, they are going to know, because people in charge now, they are the one in position, they have ruled before, they are still in the position now, and things are not getting better, it's becoming worse. So please, I feel everybody should understand where the job they go. I want to be that.
All right, thank you. We have our next caller. Hello, caller. Good morning.
Hello, sir.
Yes, what's your name, sir?
Yeah, I'm Mr. Johnson. I'm calling from the area of Dubai.
Yes, please go ahead quickly.
So what I need to say about this politics of the truth is that our brothers and sisters, this is not the time that money, so that there's no money, this and this. Because when someone is running into politics, because it's money that they use to buy tickets. So let us try our possible best. Let us not lose because of money, because of that we are not going to vote for it.
Okay.
So we are seeing the situation that Nigeria is attitude. It's because of that day, people say, I don't have food at home, they will give you like 5,000 because of that. They show a veteran.
All right, so you're saying that money politics should be avoided completely. Thank you for your contribution. Hello, caller. Good morning. What's your name? 1 minute is enough for you to make your point so that others can take their turn. Good morning, caller.
Hello, brother.
Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Chooks from Benin.
Yes, Chooks, go ahead.
I just want to greet you guys for the good job you are doing, you and the Reverend Martins. God will bless you.
Thank you.
You see, on the issue of FBC, Muslim ticket, to be honest with you, when the Nigerians are going to vote, it's not because of Muslim ticket, because of hunger. Hunger. And failure on the past and promises they made to this country.
Okay.
Because many Nigerians expected the way we expected this country to be now. In fact, if it's possible for our president to return Nigeria when we met it in 2015, let him bring it back. I'm telling you the truth. Because what they promised us 2015 is opposite side of what we're seeing now.
Okay, that's the most we take from you. That's the most we take from you. Hello, caller. Good morning. What's your name? Your name and where you're calling from. The number is on the screen. Dial the number and let's get your take on the program. Hello, caller. Good morning. Yes, tell us your name and where you're calling from. Okay, just a few more calls and we'll call it a wrap. Hello, caller. Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, Mr. Duke. My name is Brother Mike from the Housing.
Okay, Brother Mike, please go ahead.
Good morning, respected man of God, Reverend Olumati.
Thank you.
I'm just happy. But what I just want to say is that let many media, let them always invite political analysts that is not biased like Olumati. Because there are some people that pretend to be political, but they are always biased in when they are giving their reportage. Coming on this Muslim ticket,
The truth of the matter is that it's unacceptable. We cannot have a Muslim man whining down his tenor and a Muslim man want to come again. No. So some people say it's not, it does not, it matters a lot. Nigeria, we have Christian and Muslim. So that can never work. And the PDP, what is happening in PDP, I love that. When we can show them that yes, it's very, very important. When we can, that Atiku, if you lose the election, the next thing he collect the information, it disappears. Before you come back, you look for where you want to enter.
Okay, so that's the most we can take from you. Hello, Kala, good morning. What's your name?
Good morning. My name is Jala, calling from Cecilio.
All right, please go ahead.
I have two questions to the program. If Nigeria use Nigeria by now, for the past 7 years, they don't invest in local rights, how much will the foreign rights by now? If Nigeria government have not invested in local rights, how much will the foreign rights by now? Two again, let's use that for two. Say our profile the major political candidates for us, people like Tinubu, OP, and Atiku. Profile to Nigeria. The reason I'm saying this, people keep on saying OP left 40 billion in account. OP they don't owe 1 naira for the another government. Profile the candidate for us the next time we are coming to this program, please. Profile the candidate for us. Let us be the judge. Don't just give us much. When after the election, complain again. Profile the candidate for us. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I have a task. Research work as a matter of fact. Anyways, part of the job. We'll take our last call. Please call the studio line and start calling my number. Yes,
Advocate, I'm calling from Good.
Yes, Advocate. This is while I had you on this program. What's going on? Go ahead, please.
Yes, I tried my best. It always go through.
Okay. All right.
So I think that has said it all. That of River, I think the PDP should not tell with Rivers because there is comparison now. The comparison between APC administration and PDP is what is giving PDP an advantage. But this internal rivalry now is a limitation to the process. So they should, because I think it's why you see people are good clamoring for obedience anyway. But the sustainability of obedience movement to PDP is another ballgame as your guests have said right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's all of this segment of the also big thanks to everyone that's maybe contributed via our telephone lines and those who made effort and couldn't go through also appreciate it. Professor Martins, one last comment from you as we move towards the election. It's a very critical election. I mean, I heard people say, look, this election is one of the most important elections, if not the most important election. Do you share in these sentiments?
Absolutely.
And why?
Absolutely. Because Nigerians have clearly been pushed to the wall. I'm not too sure that it has been as bad as this, not just in terms of hunger, but in terms of the divisiveness in front of us. We've never had Christians, preach one tent and then Muslims preach one tent. We've never had people think that they are Fulanis. Everybody seems to think that they're safer in fringes. Everybody seems to think that they're safer in their clans. And that's because the center is not holding the way it ought to. We find our refuge more in the centers, all right? But we're not finding our refuge in the centers. We're finding expressions in, at the fringes. For the two guys who are angry very seriously, because for me, the APC are already there. They want to retain power. But for the guys who think that they have a different agenda, I'm scared. Because the APC, first of all, must get different media handlers. I wasn't comfortable when I heard, when I see some of the statements made by Festus, Keyamo. Fantastic talk, but he's not situating the issues. If you tell us in this, we're scared. Tell us that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed is going to continue going to handle Nigeria exactly the way Buhari, and that's a very scary, statement. And then for the People Democratic Party, it's just how far you can go with a flat tire. Yeah. You don't have the advantage of the might. You don't have that advantage. Yeah. So you must do everything that you can. I remember they should learn from the very maverick Obaseki. Nobody thought that Obaseki was going to turn against Oshomo. In fact, there was a meeting we had in civil society engagement. I talked about some of those street urchins then. In a fashion of 5 seconds, he his role. He did the anger in him, but he held himself and worked with them until he won the election. When he won the election, he started to bear his fangs. That's what the PDP should do. Accommodate everybody. You can't do military actions when you want to win. Accommodate everybody. And then for the obedient movement, Peter, you should not listen to what people are saying. Oh, everybody's encouraged. Everybody is part of it. But let him at his own level play the politics of networking. Okay. And let him know that there is legitimate she
and illegitimate she.
There's illegitimate she.
All right. That's our package today on the program Policies Today. Thank you so much for being here. It was nice having you here. And a big thanks to everyone that made the show a huge success. We'll be back here next week, Saturday, God willing, with a fresh edition of the program. My name is Sonny Duke Okosun. Thanking you for staying with us. I want to say big congratulations to one of our big fans, one of our big papas out there, talking about Reverend Dr. Matthew Akaze Okpebolo and his wife celebrating 50 years in marriage. Wow. Wow. I mean, so Uromi, as we speak, is agog with festivities.
Great man.
And he's also inaugurating an ultra-modern school. St. Matthew's Royal College will be inaugurated today. So big congratulations to you, the MD CEO of Royal Construction Nigeria Limited, one of our big partners in ITV Radio and a very big friend of the House of Igbeneghu. And by the way, the SMR will be celebrating in a few days' time. 11th of September is the big day, but you know, it's usually a month celebration that has been on for several years. Anyway, that's it. That's our package today. Have a beautiful weekend and bye for now.